Are we live, Marianne? We are. All right. Welcome, everybody. This is really exciting to present David and Goliath in Our Lady of Good Hope Church. It's really an honor to be here. And I want to make two thank yous before I get going here. First, Teresa Picari, I don't know if you know her. She's a parishioner in this church, and she has helped me in getting this project into the public eye. And that means coaching with social media. It means help with press releases, all stuff that is really challenging for artists. We love to make the work, but then the real challenge is what do you do after that? She's been absolutely amazing, and I highly recommend her. John Biddle, some of you know the Biddles. John helped me make a giant crate, 2 crates actually, to transport these guys, and he was wise enough to make it so that it just fit right through the door. So,
wow.
John's a special guy, and I'm going to thank him right off the bat. Okay. All right, let's get going. All right, so that's my car. No, it's not. It's not my car. But that's what my car feels like sometimes coming back from the hardware store. Or am I in the way here a little bit? You guys see? So the story begins, this project begins with a donation of a very large piece of wood that I got from a lady I met at an art show. She said, "Oh, you're a carver?" I said, "Yeah." She says, "I have this giant piece of wood that's 8 feet long, it's 10 inches wide, and it's 6 inches deep. Do you want it?" I'm like, "Yeah, how much do you want for it?" She says, "Take it away. My husband doesn't want it." It's like, wow. So I picked it up, and I wanted to do something big. And the reason is, when you're making a big project, you need to have some kind of support that is solid. You need a solid piece. And so I took this one giant piece, and the left leg, so Goliath's straight leg, all the way up to his hip is one piece. And that became the base that would solidify him. You can see that it's been cut up in the image, and I glued it up with my clamps, and I'm just getting ready to kind of piece it out. At this point, I've done some math. I figured out exactly what I need to do. As I get older, there's more math involved. If I want to be exact, I've got to figure out exactly the dimensions I want before I start. Saves time in the end. Okay, so I mentioned upstairs 20 years of practice. See, carve, evaluate. To me, that just means that it happens all at once. Used to be, I start the drill, I make one mark, I shut the drill off, and I stare at it for 5 minutes. And then I turn the drill all again. Like that used to be the process. 20 years later, it all happens much, much faster. I can run the drill for 20 minutes, I can look at it and just move it and go, 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 go. And they say it's not about, I don't know what the skill is. To me, it's seeing. It's knowing when something looks right and when it doesn't look right. And that's only time. Unless you're Michelangelo, who did the Pietà at age 22. Everyone else needs time. All right, in the toolbox, I've got my Dremel tool, which you might recognize. That's the tool on the right. To the very right, you'll see a vise. It's where the wood goes in to hold when I'm working on it. And then my angle grinder. The angle grinder would be to remove the most amount of wood at any one time. And then chainsaw would be the first step. Okay, so lower body is starting to take shape. You can see in the upper body, I actually ended up removing the back third of that. I just over budgeted and changed kind of mid-project exactly what I wanted to do with that. But that would be the summer of 2018, right there. Okay, so it's important to me when I'm doing a piece, I want to figure out what has been done, and I want to do something different than what has been done. I don't want to make a copy of something somebody else has done. So that involved a lot of research. Google Images is awesome for this. Paintings, sculptures, concepts. What can I do differently? What's going to make this piece different from any other David and Goliath pieces out there? Okay, one of the concepts that I absolutely loved in researching this was that a lot of the artwork shows David being really timid, and his body language is kind of like hiding from Goliath, and he's got this little rock, and he's like praying that it's going to hit Goliath. And then you've got the scripture. Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God? All right, that's like Old Testament trash talk. All right, like who are you, man? Okay, and so that informed my decision to have David being aggressive. Okay, he's running at Goliath. He's not afraid of his destiny. He's going right at him. And a lot of the artwork, that was where I thought I could be different. Okay, reference images. All the muscles here are directly from me looking in a mirror and pages and pages and pages of research and going onto Google and saying, I need that body part, and printing out the pages. Probably about 100 pages all told. I love having that physical page. I mean, I'm paying for the ink, but to me, it's worth it. I wanted him built, overly muscular, and there's a lot of anatomy involved, but again, it's also just, I couldn't have done this project 5-10 years ago. It's just that repetition of knowing what the human body looks like. Okay, so now he's really starting to come into shape. Two things I wanted, actually, I have 4 there. Torso twist. A torso twist will give you a sense of action and that something's about to happen. When we turn our torso, that indicates usually that there's an action involved. I wanted Goliath and David to be running at each other. They're meeting right before the battle. And then the flowing drapery. As a sculptor, I've kind of fallen in love with using wood to create movement. And one of the ways to do that is to incorporate flowing capes or kind of folds in the clothing that will give you that feeling of motion. And then here's some process pictures. One of my favorite parts are the little, it's called a balteus. It's the strips coming off of his belt. That's called a sword belt, and those are made with oak. I have a lot of fun doing those. You can see David in the upper right kind of taking shape. All right, this was a long-term project. There's no secret about that. This is a 3-year project. It did not take me 3 years straight of work. It was, if I had this project uninterrupted, it would have been about a year and a couple months. But other things came up. I started when COVID hit, and I started in 2018, but the real momentum started when COVID hit, and I was able to get about 8 months of work in. At that point, Goliath was about half done, and then I finished him last year in that final 8-month pace. My first art teacher, Ted Keller, said, "Good art takes time." Okay, it's not whipping paint on the canvas and saying it's done. It's a process. All right. So here's the big one. This is really what I want to talk about. This is the meat of the whole project. Why David and Goliath? And you can see me there on the sidelines coaching a basketball game. Okay, this is from one of my favorite movies called Hoosiers. I don't know if anybody's ever seen it. It's a true story about a very small school in Indiana, and a story about how they are one of the small schools in Indiana, and in 1954 they beat one of the biggest schools for the state championship. And it's a great story, a David and Goliath story, if you will. Okay, so as a coach, I see the element or the scene of David and Goliath played out every season. Whether it's one team playing another, or whether it's one athlete who facing another athlete, I see that story over and over and over again. All right, and most people don't. We go through our daily lives, but I think sports, especially professional sports or any sports you're seeing live, offers you this insight into life that you don't see going to work and running a business maybe. It's just, you see glimpses of stuff, and that's what I wanted to capture. Okay, huge quote right here. "Do not look at his appearance or at the height of his stature, because I have rejected him. For the Lord sees not as man sees, for man looks at the outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." Okay, I'm going to go right to Tom Brady. All right, Tom Brady, which all you guys should know. Terrific player. 199th pick in the draft when he was drafted. That means 199 players were drafted before Tom Brady. Why? He had slow feet. was not a fast runner. He had a good arm, not what we would call a cannon arm, and he was not very athletic. Okay, those were the outward appearances. He was ranked on the lower end of the quarterback spectrum, and thus drafted 199. The reality, he had incredible attention to detail, work ethic, intelligence, and made great decisions. Greatest NFL player ever. What couldn't be seen on the outside, he had in the inside. That's one great example of, it may be a little bit confusing because you're thinking, oh, he's talking about the Bible, now he's talking about Tom Brady. It's the same concept. It's the same concept of something you have in the inside that is not visible from the outside. God sees the heart. Okay, another example. Man on the street. What do you see? Do you see a drug addict? Do we see a bum? Do we see a war veteran who maybe has PTSD? Or a man who lost his job and had medical bills? We don't know. All right, and it's easy to look at someone and make that quick judgment based on what they look like. Great example of this I saw on YouTube a couple days ago. It was this experiment. This guy gave a homeless man $200 just to see what he would do with it. And they had secret cameras following this guy. What do you think he did? My guess was, all right, he's going to buy drugs. He's going to go to the convenience store and buy cigarettes and liquor. Right? That's our go-to, that's what he's going to do. All right. He came out with bags and bags of food, and he gave all that food to the people he lived near that were also homeless. And the person making the video was so impressed that they went back and they gave him $300 more. God saw that guy's heart. No way I would have guessed he would have done that. And that's kind of what we're starting to get into here, about how important it is to know the difference between what's inside you versus what we see. Okay, spiritual reality can be different than appearances. Before you say, I'm too young, I'm not strong enough, I'm not smart enough, other people have more talent, what can I possibly offer? But God chose the foolish things of the world to confound the wise. He chose the weak things of this world to put the powerful to shame. Okay, this world might tell you that you have to look a certain way, that you have to be, you have to have all the right muscles, that you have to be in the top 10% of your class in order to be successful. All right, that's not how God does it. Throughout in the Bible, David, least of his brothers, youngest of his brothers, okay, least likely to be chosen as king. Jesus came as a baby, not a warrior. He expected a warrior, somebody who was going to conquer. The apostles, all right, we had tax collectors, prostitutes, guys with anger issues, cowards. These guys weren't qualified religious people. All right, if Jesus came right now and was looking, all right, I'm going to take applications. Who's going to be my apostles? All right, these guys were not going to be on the list. Not even close. Paul the evangelist murdered many of Jesus' followers. Okay, so if you notice, there's something that God likes to do. He wants that glory where he picks people that aren't necessarily qualified to do his work. To me, that's pretty exciting. All right, there's Rocky. Okay, one of my favorite underdog stories. So, small odds. Anytime there are small odds in a situation, there are big possibilities. So, my question for you is, what is there a dream in your heart that God has put there? Something that you're dreaming about, okay? And sometimes you think, it's just a dream. The chances of that coming true are not great, and maybe I shouldn't even try because there are other people that are bigger, stronger, or better than me. No, you gotta go for it. We're all a bit like David. I want you to have hope. I want you to prepare. Okay, part of preparation is, I guess what it meant in my life was just keep going. Just keep going. In terms of the art kind of developing, it was just continuing to make stuff, not worrying about what something looked like, what somebody thought of it, just going and preparing and preparing. For you, maybe that means maybe you want to be, you love computers, okay? And maybe it just means diving in there and saying, why do I love computers? I'm gonna really look into that. You guys are athletes, you're dancers. There's no reason not to pursue those dreams and know that God loves to use us in situations where we don't feel qualified. Okay, One of some of the touches I put in there I want to share quickly. The stone, so this is a brilliant picture. The stone doesn't look as purple right now. When you shine a light on it, it does look like that. That's called purple heartwood. It's found in South America, and it's one of the hardest woods known to man. And I wrecked a lot of my special bands for my Dremel on that because you just can't cut it. Like it's really, really hard. Purple is the symbol of royalty. All right, so that was my little prophetic touch into David. He knows he's going to be king. He knows he's got a prophecy. He's not afraid of Goliath. Okay, God told him he was going to be king. So he's got the prophetic stone. Purple. We also think of purple as warrior, especially in our country. We give a purple heart for somebody that's been in war. So that was a little touch that I thought was cool. All right, you'll notice that David has pupils and Goliath does not have pupils. And my idea with that was ask yourself, what is your Goliath? And that's the big one. You can project, what does Goliath look like to me? And that's going to be different for everyone. Something that is hard for you might be really easy for someone else. My Goliath might be a lot different than your Goliath. Sometimes Goliaths come in the face of trauma. Something happened to us, and it's really hard to get past that. I know I've had a couple of them in my life. One of them was going back to school after leaving school. It was very, very hard for me emotionally to do. Even getting into coaching, getting into a situation where you're getting a lot of criticism, that's a hard thing. And so sometimes you have to work through pain, fear, sometimes it's intimidation. That's a big one. And then there are also Goliaths, like I said, with your dreams. Like if you catch yourself thinking that, no, I can't possibly do that, or something to the effect of, I'm just, anytime you're minimizing yourself or you're feeling intimidation, that can also be a Goliath. Okay, there's kind of a finished shot that was taken there, and I guess I saw myself in a little bit of David's role, in a way, just through the life that I've gotten to experience, and because in a lot of ways it's fun. I think the story of David Goliath allows us to dream. All right, what can you do if you knew you couldn't fail? How much fun would that be? All right, it's not fun to think about like how much we're not good enough and how like I'm afraid and how much. All right, the opposite of that is go for it, man. So part of me is and it's not an instant thing. It's just something that as I get older, I'm thinking, take chances. Okay, some last three things that I wanted to kind of throw out there. Can you be fearful and brave at the same time? Yes, absolutely. One of my favorite kind of TV ministers is Joyce Meyer, and she says, do it afraid. So expect to be afraid. Expect to be afraid when you're doing it. I'm not going to say it's easy, the things that I've had to walk through. It's a lot of times it's not. But you will have help. You will have help. One step at a time, one day at a time. And Matthew 28:20 says, I am with you always. I am with you always. Yes, Jeff?
It makes me think of athletic butterflies.
Yeah.
And how great they are for performance if you know how to conquer your fears the right way. And all my years of skiing and racing, it was the butterflies were intense at times, enough to freeze you. But that's a form of fear that you conquer.
I'm really glad you brought that up because I used to deal with that a lot. And so much that it can be crippling at times. But you hit it right on the head, whereas that's fear. And you know that that's not coming from God. And that's something that, even now, I think you hit it right on the head. It's, when it gets to fear and intimidation, it's not coming from our Father.
I I thought they'd remember all your life and all situations, not even just sports. It's really true. I really found that to be true.
Can I ask a question
Yeah.
about the face on David? You chose that, and I can tell, but I gotta tell you that it's fantastic. Could you go back to that
Yeah.
picture? It's incredible because it, to me, is he is saying, in modern terms, he's saying, bring it on, Goliath. Because guess what? You're gonna lose.
Yeah, exactly.
And that's what that face tells me.
Yeah.
And I love it. I love it. There's no timidity in that face at all.
No.
And I think that did you choose it that way? Or did it come out that way and you were satisfied?
No, a little of both. A little of both. It's hard to do a face without having some kind of reference, and I did pick a certain person in sports life, whatever, and I don't want to ever say who it is because you'll start to think of that person.
Right.
And it's not dead on, but you always want to have something to work from. But it did. It came out. I was very satisfied with the way it came out.
It's very close, but not quite a smile. It's like he is not afraid of that man.
Right.
And I love it.
It's the big one.
Good choice.
Another funny thing that I should add is that as an artist, they say never or always show your artwork to someone other than your mom. I had 3 or 4 cases with this where I showed this to friends and comments they made completely changed it. One of them was, I started out with Goliath. His face was all blacked out and his forehead was not visible. And my friend Roy looked at it, he's like, John, that's great, but, okay. He says, the stone is not gonna hit him on the head if his mask comes all the way down. Okay, so I went back and reworked it and it came a lot better, I thought. I had another neighbor come over and look at the shield, which I had a shield that was much different than that. That outside design was actually on the inside, and he looked at that and he's like, that's really cool. I'm like, no, that's the inside. And he's like, no, I think that's better than the outside one. All right. So like funny, I say like you don't do it alone, and that's true. Like, and it continues to be true that it's important to listen to friends and even critics because they can really help make your work better. I think of what it would look like if I didn't do that. Probably wouldn't be as good.
I'm trying to remember the name of that shield. That is a Roman gladiator.
Yeah.
I can't remember its exact name.
Thanks for mentioning that because a lot of people look at that and they say, oh, it's a Greek warrior. And I'm like, well, it kind of is because I looked at a lot of the Philistine art and we don't know exactly what the Philistines were, but I wasn't impressed. I wanted to, the Greeks knew war. They knew the equipment and the outfit, and so the shield might be Roman in that sense.
That's
You might be exactly right.
that's the same. That's the style of Roman gladiator shield I've seen in like ancient context described and then depicted in art.
Very possible. Yeah.
A small shield no bigger than the forearm.
Yeah, and I think I did stray a little bit from the story in that sense that he has a breastplate in the story, and I wanted to just show off the muscles and the abs and everything, so I didn't put the breastplate on there. Took a little creative license with that one. This is kind of fun. So I'm kind of obsessed with doing the weapons. So the sword comes out. It's in, based on an Israeli Kopesh, and you can pass that
I
around
was
if you
about
want.
to say, is that a Kopesh?
It is a Kopesh.
Oh, wow. There's gonna be some blood on this. That
There's
is
a
so
special fighting
cool.
style to those.
Yeah.
Oh
I-
my. Thank you, John, for letting me touch it.
Oh yeah.
How long did it take to make?
The sword itself? See, I always feel bad when people ask me that because I don't want to discourage anyone from doing it. I think it took about a week. My style of work is really no more than 2 hours at a time. I can't, I notice myself you lose a certain edge, and I have to back off. So when I say a week, it's not like 8 hours a day. It's just like 2 hours and then I leave it, and
Rest.
yeah, just walk away, and then you're laying in bed at night, and a thought will come in your head, and like, oh, I can do that.
Right.
I'm just admiring this thing because that is amazing. Holding something similar to a Kopesh, because Kopeshes have been one of my favorite designs on the
Really?
spectrum because of their unique style to them and the way you use them.
I'm pumped that you know what it is, because a lot of people don't. They're like, it's a curved sword.
So, and the advantage of the curved sword is,
It was just a design that was favored by the Israelis. Called it, the Israeli Kopesh. I don't know I didn't look incredibly deeply into the
it
history.
looks like it was great for slicing.
Yeah. Yes. Right. So some swords are more for
Right, for
Yeah.
plunging or thrusting.
Right. This was a slicer.
Yeah.
That design has been around since ancient Egypt.
Right.
Excellent.
And it's said to be one of the most effective sword designs.
Is that right in history? Yeah.
Cool.
What did you make the small part on the?
Oh yeah.
Actually, she must
The sling.
Yeah.
The sling. That's just a hollowed out piece of wood.
What is the long?
It's just a piece of metal. It's about the thickness of a coat hanger. Yeah, and I saw just an image that I saw online of the taut sling. I thought that was a lot more effective than one that was kind of like in the air, like loose.
Yeah.
Gives you that feeling of tension, like.
Yeah, it's ready to be, it's the last motion in the, I was taught 2 ways to sling.
Oh, really?
And that is the very last motion, back motion, when it's already starting back up, and that's when it is the tautest.
At that point.
Yeah, I was taught 2 ways to do it, and that's just as it's beginning to be launched.
Apparently it takes an unbelievable amount of practice to be.
Yeah, my grandfather was fantastic.
Was he
at it.
really?
And when we were young, there weren't boats in the cove, but we'd see who could like slingshot, and he taught us that it wasn't this way. It was like 1, 2, back, and then you could accurately throw it a quarter of a mile. You could throw a small rock a quarter of a mile, no problem. And we were just kids, and we were fascinated. So we were always building slings.
No way.
And we had a great time for years, thinking we were David.
Yeah, there you go.
I went to Israel, and when we were walking by one of the places, some guy was using a sling, and in the middle of Israel, he decided to launch a stone about that big up into the air. Just,
Wow.
but I don't remember how he did it, but it was quick, and you could tell he's done it a lot.
Yeah.
And you could have bought slings, we didn't, but yeah, it was cool.
Wow.
So I guess going forward in terms of thinking about what it means to you and kind of how to approach where you are in life, I would say definitely think about what's on your heart, what you really love to do. Think about situations or circumstances that get in the way of that. And is it self-talk? You know, what is that saying? Is it saying go for it, or is it, trying to give you a solid example, but, it could be, I don't know, I'll give an example from, I guess from being a coach maybe, and going from kind of a sub-varsity level to a varsity level position, and I can tell you the voices in my head, what they were saying, and some of them would be, you know, you don't have as much experience as a coach that's been around longer. Well, yeah, you know, but still that voice is in your head. Or you might hear I've heard the one that says, you know, you're not loud enough. You're not like other coaches like that. And, you know, I've heard that one, and that, they all have a negative effect, on me. And then there's that also voice that says, just keep going. Just keep going. We'll work out. Just be you. Just keep going. And a lot of times, honestly, it goes against your feelings. I tend to believe our feelings a lot. I do. It's one I struggle with. We feel fear and we think, I don't want to be there. I don't want to go there. It's not true. I don't want to go up against that. And it's another thing to kind of say, I'm going to see this to the end. I'm going to stick through it. And spiritually, that's really a tough one. And but I think it's an area of growth. If you feel that fear, generally it's because you might be in the right place.
Challenging our Goliaths.
Yeah. And I say that with humility because it's not easy. It's not easy, but you will have help.
Yeah. Beautiful. Can we see the other side?
Yeah, go ahead.
Can we
Oh, you wanna
turn
rotate?
it so we can
Yeah.
see the other side
Sure.
of your work?
Yep. So which one do you want me to? Let me turn. They're all on casters, but some of the casters have gotten stuck.
Ah, there he is.
Had a lot of fun with the rope belt, making that look like it was.
It's hard to believe it's wood. The fabric and the.
Yeah, it's. Oh, kind of fun. If I can swing him around.
Oh, you can see the motion of the fabric.
Yes.
Also, I love the little detail, like his spear looks custom made for his size, like a pipe with a spear into it.
That's a good point. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I love the ancient aesthetic of those helmets.
Yeah, I know the Greeks knew helmets.
You have
Yeah.
any pictures of your Stormtrooper?
I might have one on my phone.
You might have to come back with that.
I might have to. Yeah, it's not as impressive as it sounds. It's only 12 inches tall.
Do you like lightsaber?
You do kind of want to stay away from products though, like they'll come after you. Disney is, you know, like.
We're not selling though.
if I were
What
to
else have you
split-
carved?
Funny thing, that's insane.
I've seen baseball players.
Baseball, yeah, a lot of sports. I just finished Robin Hood.
Oh, you finished? I saw you were posting.
Yeah.
Robin Hood, tennis player.
Yeah, and at the
I saw that at MRC.
yeah, the MRC, Serena Williams.
From different angles, David's face takes on different emotions. Have you noticed that?
No.
So from this angle, he appears intensely calm.
Okay.
And in the picture, he was calm, but willful.
Mm-hmm.
I love love that, I mean, it's just like, you know, every part of the human face is different, we're not split down the middle
Gotcha.
perfectly. I love it,
Do you know the story behind it?
fascinated.
I think it's about,
Yeah. Well, he did.
and he knows exactly what he's going to do and how it's going to go down.
Yeah.
And to be fair, a lot of ancient Indians had the most successful orthodox to become. You just have
Like accessible, right?
that's essentially what I do, that's actually what.
Oh, you're a player? Yeah.
So John, remind us all where where the Philistines were from. The town, area,
It's just these
in,
little bits that
I'm trying to remember and I can't. Can you, was it in the,
and then I guess they just.
was it
made it into.
above Israel? Is that what I'm thinking?
Yeah, and they met in the valley of Elah.
Cause when I read the Bible, I remember,
Might need one of
oh,
those.
it was better for me to, cause I was thinking geographically, you know, what they did to come together. And, how they came out, cause, north of Jerusalem